Well, welcome. Thanks for coming. This is Design 113, and you'll have to forgive me. I am uh, just coming down with a cold, so I'm going to not be doing a whole lot of talking today. We're going to watch some videos. I will do a demo for you guys and show you how to do your assignments and what to expect for week 3. And we'll go ahead and turn off the video and start. Now, are there any questions before we begin? Any questions from last week? Any questions about assignments this week? Hey, Teresa,
Yeah.
thanks for coming. Good to have you guys. Okay, so Donovan did the face assignment, and good for you for looking ahead and doing assignment 3. Absolutely. Do you want to wait until after class, or do you want to just show the class? It's whatever you prefer. I'd be happy to give you feedback on it, though. You'll share? Perfect. That's the spirit. Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop my share. Go ahead and pull it up, Donovan. Let's talk about it. This is a good intro and what we have to do this week anyway, so you guys get a sneak peek at what someone else is doing. All right. So did you have, well, I'll ask you questions after you pull it up.
Do you want me to pull up the Illustrator one or the PDF?
Go ahead and pull up the Illustrator one. That way we can see it in its original file. Did you have fun with it?
Yeah, I was a little bit confused at first because I've never done something like that before. And
Yeah.
I actually did it off of a picture because I had one of the people from the Student Center help me out to understand it.
Perfect.
And it happens to be a picture of my daughter.
Very cool. I can't wait to see.
Yeah, once my Illustrator will open up.
No problem. It takes a while for mine to load too. For some reason, it just has a lot to remember.
Yeah, the new update version. There it is.
Very cool. I love it. So this is a great example.
That's what she looked like. That's the picture of her.
Oh, she's adorable. How old is she?
She's 10 months.
Oh, she's so cute. Oh, it's a fun age too.
Yeah.
Okay, well, good job. This is a great introduction to what we're going to be doing. So walk us through, Donovan, what you did here.
Okay, so how it was explained here to me actually was first I had to pull up the picture into the Illustrator. I had to go and to file and place it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had to sit there and censor the picture itself onto the artboard. And then she explained that I had to lock this one so I'm not messing up the picture.
Right.
And then I had to set up the new layer. And I'll just do like an example, even though I already have it saved.
So it looks like you did type on a path. That's the tool you used, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I asked, well, did it matter if it was random words or did it have to be regular? She's like, well, by the look of the assignment, it really doesn't matter if it's random words.
No.
So I used the fill-in text to do it.
Perfect.
So let's see. I can show for like here. I just basically made a line.
She kind of traced around her face.
Yeah.
With the pen tool, and then you
use here.
The type on the.
Oh, there it goes. Type on pad tool.
Perfect.
Come over.
Yep, and then you filled it in with placeholder text, right?
Yeah. What's going on?
Good job. So yeah, this is exactly what. This is excellent. I have no changes to make on this. So this is actually submittable. If you haven't already, you can definitely submit it.
No, I haven't submitted it because they said go ahead and wait and get your opinion on it first. Just to see if I needed to do any more to it or not.
No, I think you covered your bases. Obviously, there's always more you could do, but I think you have all the right elements here, and I think you captured the portrait of the face very well. There's actually a lot of different ways to approach this assignment, so there's no right and wrong here, as long as it looks like you attempted some form of creativity. And so I like what you did. You explored Illustrator a little bit. You used a lot of different tools that I think
I was actually thinking of actually like adding in the hearts.
you could do that. It's mostly just supposed to be the portrait, so you could even. But if you want to play with it, by all means, keep practicing with it. So whatever helps you get comfortable with those tools. But I think you have the right elements there, and so no changes to this assignment. So great job.
All right.
Excellent, Donovan. Way to show us all up and on that assignment. Good job. And we might be coming back to using yours as an example in just a little bit towards the end of class when we go over it. So as you guys can tell from Donovan's assignment, or that's what we're going to be doing for week 3, we're going to be doing a typeface illustration. And as you can see, he did it one way. I'm going to do it a different way, but I'll be showing you lots of different pictures and visual examples of how you could approach it. So really, there's no right and wrong. It's just, are you featuring the type? So remember that paper that you wrote last week? That's what you're going to be designing that font with. So you're going to so if Helvetica was the font that you chose for the paper last week, you're going to take Helvetica and you're going to try to create a typeface illustration using that font. So it's actually a lot of fun. This is probably one of my favorite assignments to demo, and also students love this one because they actually get to do something creative. So great work, great work. All right, so we're going to be talking about setting type, and we're going to go through a few principles, a few rules, and we're going to watch a few videos because I don't know how long my voice will hold up, so I do apologize. But the videos are nice because they're really informative, and they will step you through a little bit more in depth on what's going to be expected for the next few assignments. So just to recap, assignment 3 is going to be the typeface illustration, and the assessment 3, you're going to be doing more formatting, or how to format text and create character and paragraph styles. So we'll go over that a little bit in InDesign and let you kind of design your heart's content. So let's begin. Okay, so let's talk about how we read. The main goals, obviously, is to just keep things legible. You hear the word legibility, readability. I want you to ask yourself, is the text inviting? Does the quality of the page make it easy to read? And is the type large enough and distinct enough that the reader can just discriminate individual words and letters? So when you're laying something out or formatting for your assessment 3, I'm going to be looking for legibility, readability. I want to be able to see that you've sectioned off things, that you've kept things consistent and unified, and kind of stuck with the rules that we'll be going over in class today. So I have a video. It's a fairly lengthy one, but I do want to share it because it will go through the designer's goals and talk a little bit more about legibility. So let me pull this up. See if I can get this pulled up for you, and then let me know if you have a problem with sound coming in. Can you guys hear it?
Hi. One of the most important things I've been reiterating here and there in the videos is the idea of creating and working with readable text treatments. And here I'd like to show you a PDF of several different ones, some of which work better than others, and they work in ways that you might not be used to seeing. So we're going to take a look at some of these different approaches here. This PDF uses some clever gibberish text, which is generated from, there are several websites you can go to plug in keywords, and it will randomly generate gibberish sentences. So it's kind of fun to look at. But here, it's been used just for the type treatments. The first one is done in an Old English, old style typeface. Now, generally speaking, this is considered somewhat illegible because it's so decorative and it's so heavy and condensed. However, the treatment here is not that bad. You'll notice that it is great contrast, black on white. The line length is a little bit long. I would have made it shorter, but you'll notice that it has some decent leading. So this is actually something that is readable. So if you ever had to use this typeface, knowing that spacing around the letters is of prime importance, as is a short line length and a good contrast. The next couple paragraphs use sans serif and serif respectively, for the same treatment. And it looks like they're the same size. And you can see the differences in the two serif and sans serif. And the sans serif one looks a little larger. So I would say for better readability, the type size on this one could go down, but I would keep the same leading. And as with all of these, I think the line lengths are a tad too long, and I would make them shorter just for better readability. But generally speaking, these two are pretty good for readability. The next couple are not. The bold, the all caps, not as easily read. The bold gets dark. It has a dark text color, as we say. It's not bad in some ways because it's upper and lower case. It's got decent leading, but we try to avoid that in body copy. Bold is just too much. All caps, you can hopefully immediately see that this is tough to read. All the letters are the same height. It just makes it tough, and the long line length doesn't add to this. So we do avoid bold and all caps in paragraph text. The next sections are what we call reversed text, any text that is lighter than its background. Now, this can be a very effective treatment for headlines, for subheads, for really short passages, but even for something this long, no, it's too much. It makes the eyes tired after a while. And here, in this example, which uses the font Papyrus, you'll notice that the ascenders and descenders are starting to bump into one another, which says that the leading is not deep enough, and this would need to be reset. And some designers feel, by the way, that the font Papyrus is so overused that it's a good one to avoid anyway. This next one is quite good. It's a light green background with black text, and I think generally that is a readable type treatment. Here we have the same green background, but not so readable. The bold here, the thin typeface here, notice that it's set in gray, very difficult to read. And this one is horrible. Not only is it all caps and bold, it's a condensed typeface that is practically completely illegible. So we want to avoid the decorative fonts treatment on paragraphs. And here's another example. A really cool looking digital font, very modern, but not in this treatment. Really tough to read. Okay? Now here's an interesting example. This is a very small point size, and it's kind of hard to read on the left, but the same size type is a lot easier to read on the right because of the leading. The leading has been probably tripled in depth, and it's really still quite small. But you'd agree, I think, that it would be a lot easier to read this on the right. So if you ever have to use small point size on your text, make the leading as deep as possible for ease of reading. Next, we have an example of how text that's overly large is really tough to read, as you can quickly see. It's tiring. Here are some great examples of what not to do. Gray text on a light green background, really tough. And then my personal favorite, the busy background. You can't read that text at all. It is just impossible. Here's one solution, and that is to take the same background and ghost it back, make it a lot lighter, and then the text is much more contrasty on top of that. Lastly, I went over these in another video, but we'll repeat them here again. This is the same paragraph set in different alignments. This is flush left, and this is justified. Each of these two top ones are really quite readable and work quite well in layouts. If you work with the word spacing on the justified so you don't get the holes in the text, you can be quite successful with these two settings. Flush right, which is here, and centered don't work as well for body copy. The rags are just too distracting. So you want to avoid those two settings for long passages. This is something to be aware of if you use text wrap here, where you wrap text around a graphic. You should really use a justified type alignment when you're wrapping text around something, because you'll get a straight line on the edges and you'll get a much cleaner line around your text wrap, around your graphic, if you use justified. This is flush left, rag right, and so you get a super raggedy left side there. Okay? This is a border text treatment. Be careful with how you use these because they can be hard to read, but if you ever do use it, I recommend an all caps version so the letters are all the same size. Makes for a better border. Lastly, we have a nice treatment here, a block of text on its side. This can work really well if you use justified alignment, get rid of any gaps in the word spacing, and you use good contrast and a nice readable typeface. And then at the end here, we have some not so readable because it's gray on green. The black reads a lot better over the green background. I'm going to finish here with a fun example of something that a student sent me a couple years ago. I have never been able to figure out what this says. I think it's probably a logo for a band, a death metal band, and it's a case where the letters have been overly treated, and it's just absolutely impossible to read. So do show some restraint when working with logo text, and keep these readability tips in mind as you proceed. Thanks.
All right. So what are some ways that we can help increase readability? What are some things that stuck out to you? Anything? Anything stick out to you guys? Boldness and placement. That's right. That's exactly. And then boldness to be used sparingly, right? To only bold either headers or subheadlines, but never full bodies of text. So that's correct. And then do we use all caps in a paragraph setting? No, absolutely not, right? That's right. Okay, so let's move on. I'm going to show another video, and then we're gonna keep going. So how do we apply this to our assignment? Which slide did I have this on? Oh, there it is. Let's see. Apologize, I lost my place. Here we go. See if I can find. Okay, here is, I played that video already, the text readability. And sorry guys, I lost my slide and all my notes. Oh well, we'll keep going. Okay, so so now what we're going to talk about is reading in the eyes. So there's a word called regression, and what that is it's a process of rereading materials to find keywords in previous lines. So it's thought to aid short-term memory and make continuous connections within the material. And a lot of different factors go into determining readability, and she touched on some of these in the video. One of which is type size, how large is it, how small is it? And then horizontal flow, do the lines flow well? Are there good line breaks? Readers don't read individual letters, they read words and groups of words based on past associations with the word. So that's one of the factors that goes into readability. There's also youth and adults. We read things differently. Adults read entire words and phrases rather than piecing together individual letters. And so as you can see, readability versus readability, the all caps is less readable in large bodies of text. Now, all caps is okay and appropriate if you were to use it in a heading or a subheader, but not for large bodies of text like a paragraph. Okay, so one of the rules is stretching, squishing text. This is a very bad thing, so please never do it. Always choose a font that's designed to fit your purpose. And so you want to avoid unintentionally distorting fonts through using correct tools and text boxes. But for optimum legibility, I want you to choose a classic time-tested typeface. Now you're in luck, you've been given a couple to choose from. And so we've already kind of said these are approved, you can use these, but these typefaces are drawn and crafted with consistency among characters, which really makes it optimal for readability. The upper and lowercase letters are readable. We talked a little bit about ascenders and descenders and that papyrus font. The descenders run into each other, and so it makes it very difficult to read in large bodies of text. Yeah, Helvetica is an excellent font. In fact, it's a timeless font. As we learned last week, we saw a video on Helvetica. Okay, so upper and lower case. Again, you can see how the eye gets tired if it's just reading straight lines of text from letters that are all the same size and same height. Absolutely. All right, and then let me see if I can find that video that I wanted to share. Oh, there it is. I think I found it. There we go. So we're going to look at the difference between character and paragraph styles and why they're important. We're going to be also looking at the difference between them. So let me first show you how to use them, and then we'll talk about the difference between them.
Paragraph styles and character styles in Adobe InDesign can save a lot of time when you use certain kind of fonts and spacing and paragraph styles a lot. So if you want a specific look,
Can you guys hear
formatting for your text, whether it be a sidebar, a photo caption, a title, or body copy, instead of having to set that manually every single time, here's a quick way to save some time with paragraph and character styles. So go ahead and open up InDesign. Go to File, New, Document. The default is fine, letter size, whatever. And actually for columns, we're going to set that to 2. And the gutter in between 1 pica, that's fine. Click OK. All right. Then go ahead and go to File. Or actually, before we do that, go ahead and go to Window, and then Styles, and go to Paragraph Styles. You notice it doesn't have a whole lot of styles by default, just paragraph, basic paragraph. If we right-click over that, edit basic paragraph, it shows you the defaults, Minion Pro, 12-point, regular, indents, 0 spacing as far as left or right or in between the paragraphs or the first line, all right? So that's the defaults. Go to character, there is actually no character styles there right now, okay? So I just generated some lorem ipsum text in lorem ipsum generator, and I'm going to file place. So just place a Word document, doesn't matter what the text is. All right. Then click open. I'm just going to click and let go. Then I'm going to click this red cross here, click and let go. So we just have 2 columns of basic text here. You notice it does have a spacing in between, single space, no indent for the first line of the paragraph, and there's 1 line of space in between the paragraphs though. All right. So if I click the type tool, click anywhere in there, do Control A on the PC, Command A on the Mac, and we can adjust that. Like in the other tutorial, we could go to Window, and we go to Type and Tables, and then we go to Paragraph or Character, depending on what we want to fix. For paragraph, this is the spacing in between right there, so I could set that to 0, and then it would get rid of the spacing. And then if you wanted an indent for the first paragraph, say 2 picas, you just click it right there, and then it adds a indent so the paragraphs are kind of delineated visually, all right? But I'm going to set that back to 0, close that out, and over on paragraph styles over here, we have no character style still, but paragraph style. You can double click on any of these or right click, edit, and you can see the settings that you can control on here. So underneath paragraph style, they actually have character formatting as well. So Times New Roman, 8.5, regular, and then some advanced character formats, some of that you might not really use on a regular basis, but mostly the basic character formats, what kind of font, what size, the spacing in between the lines, or the words, the letters, and also indents and spacing. Is it left justified? Is it full justified, like it's a block text, or is it just left, just normal, or even centered, right? And then you have even really a lot of things you may not use a whole lot, like different color text, and even options with hyphenation, like when does it hyphenate, how many letters does it have to have, a lot of things you can check out. But the basics, character formats, And then, you know, some of these are things you might use, but tabbing, maybe not. But just under general, actually, you can base it on another one if you want to create a new one. If you want most of the formatting options from a previous one, you just want to edit it a little bit. It's actually two ways to do that. You could duplicate it and change it, or you could just base it on it. All right, so I'm going to hit cancel. Let's go ahead and create a brand new one. Could click right here. If we had some that we already used, or if you download some from a free website, you could go to load paragraph styles. But we're actually just going to go to new paragraph style, or alternatively, you could just click that new paragraph style icon on the bottom of the paragraph styles. All right, palette there. Now, paragraph style 1, that's by default the name. Double click on it. Let's go ahead and change it name to body copy. It's based on normal web, which is the one right above it. And we can base it on another one. Let's just say we base on normal. So it shows what we have here: spacing, auto leading, Arial for the font style. So if we go to basic character formats, let's go ahead and change that to Times New Roman. And let's change the size to 12 point. Keep font style regular. And a lot of this will just keep the same. Actually, I'm going to do probably left justify there. And then the first line indent, let's do a 1 pica to delineate those paragraphs from each other. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then we have body copy, right? So notice the cursor here was blinking inside this paragraph, and it went ahead and applied it to the entire paragraph. If I press Control A, body copy, it'll apply it to the entire 2 columns like so. All right. Now, character style, a little bit different. I'm going to go ahead and create a new one here. I'll just call it title, or maybe pull quote, something like that. And I'm going to change the font family to Arial. Sometimes sans serif fonts are better for short bursts of text like sidebars and titles, pull quotes. And then some prefer the serif font like Times New Roman for body copy. But when you're designed for the web, you usually have chunky text anyway, where you can use Arial. But let's say we're designing for print or something that would be read on an e-reader. So we'll use Times New Roman for the body copy. For pull quotes, to do Arial. For the font style, though, let's just try bold, just so it'll be a little bit different. You can even adjust the kerning and the tracking. Of course, kerning is a spacing between 2 letters. Tracking is, you could select the entire paragraph or word or sentence and adjust the spacing between everything. So character color, let's just change it to cyan there and click OK. All right. Now, so if I click and drag over this sentence, I'm going to pull quote, it'll change that automatically. All right. So we have character styles, which just have a limited number of options compared to the other one. We would just have character format as far as the font style, font size. If we don't have it set, it'll just keep the original one. So I could change that as well to 24, and it changes it automatically without me reapplying it. So that saves a lot of time. Let's say you have a book with 100 sidebars, and you have them all set as pull quote, and somehow to go through and take an entire couple hours selecting it, changing the font style, font size, color. If they all have pull quote attached to them, all you have to do is edit the character style. You can go in and change the options here, and it will automatically be reflected throughout the entire publication. All right. You can also click this sidebar here. If you go duplicate style, you can, basically just make a copy of what you already have. So duplicate style, and then body copy 2, or you can call it title text. All right. And then you could create that one as well. All right. You can also create style groups if you click this little folder icon. If you need to, if you have a lot of them, so it becomes kind of unruly when you have, let's say, a couple dozen styles, paragraph styles, and character styles. So if you can click and drag them into there. If I click none up here, then it sets that to none. So that's the basics of character styles and paragraph styles. Want to keep this kind of short. I'll probably go into more detail.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and stop there. Our thanks a little bit as to what a paragraph and a character style are and how to format them for assessment 3. We'll go into a little bit more depth, but I just wanted to give you kind of that basic rundown of what to expect. So as we go through these rules, it'll make a little bit more sense to you. Okay, so we talked about no stretching or squishing text. If you want to alter the size or the font family or the width of text, there's ways to go into your character formatting controls and change that. You don't need to stretch and squish. So that's very, very bad. So we talked about using upper and lowercase letters to form optimum readability. You can use uppercase sparingly, whether it's for a subheader or for a headline, but to be aware of the ascenders and descenders when you use a lowercase font. With the fonts that you've been given, though, they're pretty clean fonts, pretty traditional, and like Donovan said, he used Helvetica, or that's what he wrote his paper on, so that's the font he'll be featuring. Helvetica is a great clean font, so no ascenders or descenders to be worried about. You just want to make sure that the spacing or the leading between the lines of text are deep enough to have that readability. All right, we saw that one. So for text type, using sizes that according to legibility studies, they prove most readable. So if you're doing bodies of text, so in the case of assessment 3, the sizes that you want to generally stick to for your body text or your paragraph text is about 8 to 12 points. 12 being on the larger side. I feel like the point sizes will differ according to the font family. So Times New Roman, you can pretty much go up to 12 and it won't be too overwhelming, but in InDesign, you want to stick to the lower end of the range, so 8 or 9 point for the body text. A lot of times students try to fill space by enlarging the font quite large, and it no longer becomes body text or paragraph text. Now it becomes just a big run-on headline. So we want to make sure that we keep sizes generally between 8 to 12 points. And that's about typical too if through high school, if you guys have taken any English class, they kind of say between 8 to 12 points anyway. So it's a good rule of thumb when laying out any paragraphs or large bodies of text that you're going to be reading. So for a paragraph or paper, you want to keep it around there. Now be sure to remember that point sizes, based on the X height of the letters, they appear different from one typeface to another. So an 8-point Times New Roman is going to look a lot different than an 8-point Helvetica or an 8-point Myriad Pro or an 8-point Arial font. So you just want to kind of use your judgment as to what might look too large or too small on a page. All right, are there any questions after we've seen the 2 videos, after we've learned a couple rules? Any questions? And we can address more about the character and paragraph formatting when we do our demo. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything that was, okay, perfect. All right, so let's continue. We only have a few more of these to chug through, and then we're gonna start the fun part of designing. All right, now this rule is to use text types of book, meaning any regular font. You wanna use this for large bodies of copy. Like we saw in that video, bolded font for paragraphs is kind of a big no-no. It's hard to read. So any regular Roman book, these are all other words for keeping it a non-bolded text. So you want to avoid typefaces that might appear too heavy. You might have a regular font family, but it may not be bolded, but the actual font family itself might be too heavy. Or even too light. And so in that case, you need to pick a different font or change your font for your paragraph copy, because if it's too heavy, it will look bolded. If it's too light, it won't be dark enough to read. So text typefaces that are too light, as we know, are not easily read or distinguished from their background. So we really want to make sure there's a good balance there. And again, you're the designer, so you get to be the judge. Just make sure that you can read it. I even tell students to kind of step away from their computer about 10 steps. Can you see what, is the font legible enough? Maybe not for paragraph text, but just kind of step away and see if you can see it from a distance, because if you can make it out, generally the rule of thumb is that you'd be able to read it on screen. So the next rule is using styles to ensure consistency. So for text type, you want to just be consistent in letter and word spacing, especially you want to keep in mind your leading and tracking. It doesn't want to be, you don't want it too tight and you don't want it too loose. Other things, if it's too tight, it will be hard to read. Everything runs into each other. All the letters and words will run into each other. If the leading and tracking is too loose, things look disconnected. They don't look like they're supposed to be together. They look, the lines of text are disrupted. And so letters should always flow gracefully and naturally into words. So if, when in doubt, use the default setting on your tracking and leading. That's usually the good general rule of thumb if you're not familiar with how to make it look good. And most fonts, say most of them are pretty much set to a default that looks good as it is. So you don't have to mess with that too much. But you definitely want to be mindful of it. And then next rule is you want to use a paragraph style setting to make adjustments and keep things consistent. Okay, why is this important? Well, you wrote a paper and it might translate to be about one-page design in InDesign. But if you were working for a newspaper or for a magazine or for a book publishing company, any company that uses multiple pages of text, you definitely are going to be relying on the paragraph style settings. Are any of you familiar with master pages and how to set up master pages? Okay, so you know that, and what's the purpose of master pages? Just real quick reason. And Donovan, I'll get to your question in just a minute. Great question. So what's the purpose of master pages? To cover all the pages, that's right. To save you time. If you're working in a 100-page document, an InDesign document with 100 pages, and you make one change to the footer of a page, are you going to want to do that 100 times on each page? Absolutely not. That would be too time-consuming. It would just suck the time right out of the project. But if I could make one change and apply it to 100 pages, well, now you're talking. So same concept here with paragraph styles and character styles. This is supposed to be a time saver. This is supposed to help you work efficiently as a designer and help you keep things consistent. If you don't want to if you're laying out a page or 100 pages, you want to make sure all your paragraphs are consistent. All your formatting is consistent. Every paragraph is using the same font size, the same font family, the same tracking and leading, and the same color, and the list goes on. You're going to want the formatting to be the same throughout your document so it looks consistent and professional. And so that's why we use paragraph styles, to help save time, to help keep things consistent, and to make connections clear. Even spacings will make connections unclear if we're not careful. So we want to make sure that we adjust subheads, that we are keeping a close eye on proximity, and that the paragraph itself is consistent. So that's why we use paragraph styles. Or 1,000 pages. That's right, Donovan. If you're working in an industry that has to publish lots of pages, multiple pages, you just don't want to make that change multiple times. You just want to make it once and have it apply. So same concept with the paragraph and character styles. Now, Donovan asked a question on the assessment, can we use filler text or do we actually have to write something? A great question, Donovan. You remember that paper that you wrote about your font family? In your case, it would be Helvetica. You're going to take that paper and the text and you're going to design that. So good news for those who did the assignment in week 2. If you wrote the paper, you're going to take that paper and format it. If you didn't write the paper, you're going to need to write the paper anyways and format that. So no filler text, no grabbing text online. This is a paper that you were supposed to have written in week 2. So we're going to be taking that and formatting text. So great question. Good question, Donovan. How do we format it? I will show you. I will show you how to lay it out in such a way that it's easy to read, and we'll go over that in our demo. You do not need a master page, Teresa. Nope, because we're only going to be designing one page. I think the word count will probably come out to about 1 page. I was using a master page as kind of an example. So the master page is just another way to save time, just like a paragraph style is another way to save time when designing. So no, you won't need a master page, but that's a great question. I don't believe that's on the grading rubric. Okay, so all in all, we just want to strive for consistent rhythmic rags. The purpose of effective rags is not only to achieve aesthetic beauty, but also helps readers move gently and effortlessly down a text column. So the rags, remember, are kind of that space, that empty space at the end of a sentence. You want to make sure that it all flows well. You keep your eye on that. You can adjust this through tracking or hyphenation options. Usually just deselecting or selecting the hyphenation box will help you adjust the rags in your paragraphs. And you clearly want to indicate your paragraphs, but be careful not to upset the integrity and the visual consistency. What do I mean by that? Only choose one type of indication to keep the text flowing. So limit your drop caps or enlarge caps. How many drop caps do you need in an article? Any brave soul want to answer? If you were to use a drop cap, do you use it every paragraph or do you use it once? The answer is you would use it once. That's right. So that's what this rule is saying. Don't overdo or overuse your paragraph formatting. If you're going to choose a certain type of indication for your paragraph text, you really want to limit it to just one. So drop caps should be just one, and large caps maybe once, but it's usually at the beginning of a paragraph only. So you don't want to overdo it throughout your paragraphs. And in our case, we really only need to use it once because we're only using about a one-page design. All right, now the next one is pay close attention to your baseline shift options. They're there and available for special situations. So text on a path should be used with skill and purpose. And as you saw with Donovan's assignment, he used text on a path or type on a path, that tool, to trace the outline of his daughter's face. So he carefully selected the font and kind of used it and adjusted font size. And it really worked. It created that outline that he was looking for. So we want to make sure we're paying attention to, does things flow? Does it make sense when it's on a page? All right, here's some other common problems you might run into as you're formatting your text for Assessment 3. Remember, bolded body text, too heavy. These are do not attempts. All caps, we saw that it does not work in the video. Scripted fonts, any fancy scriptive italic fonts, anything that's got some flourish to it, please avoid. Anything that's vertically stacked or body text that might be too large, over 12-point font in your body text. Outline body text, you just don't ever want to outline your text, ever. Never outline or give it a stroke. And then too many effects used on the text, like a blur, shading, drop shadows, gradients, bevels. You really want to eliminate those altogether. Even in logo design, you don't want too many of those going on at the same time. Maybe one, maybe two, but that's even left to the professionals to decide. So you want to limit your effects. Remember, as graphic designers, we often think that we have to overcomplicate things, and we tend to do that naturally because we feel like the more the better. But in this case, less is more. So the more we can simplify our design, the better and cleaner it becomes to the eye. All right, so we're going to be talking about more common problems, and I'll be doing some demos in class. I did want to pull up a website and share it with you guys, see if it will work for me. Okay, and you guys, I want you to play along. This is actually a fun website. It's called thinkingwithtype.com, and I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. A few interactive games. So the first one is called The Crime. This is vertical or horizontal scaling. So this will get you used to how to vertical or horizontal scale a type. So it even tells you how to play the specific game. Shown here is a machine for distorting type. As the letters get hit by the evil sprites, they become distorted in the horizontal or vertical direction. So we'll watch this real quick. So watch, as the evil words hit the type, it's adjusting the size or the width, the vertical or the horizontal scaling. So obviously vertical scaling is the taller the letter, horizontal is the wider the letter, the width. As we see that E is getting stretched quite wide. You see that? All right. So you don't want your text or type to look like this. You want to make sure that it is as uniform as possible. So this is an example of why you shouldn't stretch or scale incorrectly your type, because it can look all funky. Yeah, what not to do, absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to this one. If you guys want to play along on your computer, this one is called the crime. So these are we call them the dumb quotes. Destroy the evil hatch marks, because we don't use hatch marks in pull quotes. We use the actual quotations. We call them the dumb quotes, which are the hatch marks, these straight vertical marks. And so we want to preserve the quotations as much as possible. So why do you want to play it? Well, quotation marks consist of distinct characters for opening and closing a quoted passage. So you kind of want to make sure that you are keeping things consistent and you're using the correct characters. That's the thing. You want to make sure you're using the correct ones. About 10 minutes we're a little early on the break, but I'm gonna give you about 10 minutes to play along with this. Look around, there's some really cool games that you can play and just kind of play along with. This one's fun, the crime, the pseudo italics is a fun one. And play around with it and kind of get familiar with the type and the importance of what it's trying to teach you. So we'll take our break, and when we come back, we'll finish up our lecture, and then we'll go into what is required for this week. Are there any questions before we break? No questions? Okay, well, have fun with the website. Play along with it, and we'll see you guys in 10 minutes. I'll go ahead and pull up our whiteboard. All right, we'll see you guys soon. All right, so let's jump back into the lesson. So I want to talk a little bit about punctuation too. As you're formatting your text for your assessment 3, one of the things that often gets overlooked is punctuation. And you would think this would be something that would be automatically included, but sometimes it can either get left off or it's not used correctly. And so I wanted to show you an example of why it's important to use correct punctuation. So look at this phrase, let's eat grandma. Without any comma or period or exclamation mark, we don't know what exactly this is trying to say. But if you read the second line, let's eat grandma, then with that comma, it shows with correct grammar that you are able to distinguish two different meanings for the sentence. So pay close attention to how you guys use punctuation and make sure that you're using it correctly. Yeah, don't eat grandma. It's never a good idea. Always use correct punctuation though. So just wanted to point that one out. This is not Little Red Riding Hood. Love it. Let's talk about special characters for a minute. Have you guys used glyphs? I think I touched on it during week 1. Are you guys familiar with where to find glyphs? Okay, so yes, a little. And so I'll show you a little bit more about why glyphs are important. And I was going to show you, I'll skip that part. Okay, let me pull up InDesign. And I'll show you a little bit of what you're going to need to know for glyphs. So if you go to your, I believe it's your type glyphs. So if you go to your type drop-down menu and select glyphs, it pulls up a whole bunch of characters within your font family. So here at the bottom, I'm in the Helvetica New font family, and you can scroll for what seems to be endless, and you have all these options of different characters, and some are shapes, some are quotes, some are different characters used in languages, lots of different things that you can get creative with. Depending on the font family, though, you'll have different glyphs. And just like families, there are some that are large and some that are small. So with some font families, you'll have a lot of glyphs to choose from, a lot of different characters that you can use. Or if it's a small font family, you'll only have a very select few glyphs, like music notes, smiley faces. These are kind of neat, just different characters that you can use for any design purpose. But like I said, within each font family, there's a different set of glyphs. So just wanted you to explore and experiment with this a little bit as you're doing your typeface illustration. You can feel free to use these glyphs as characters or as markers. So I want you to experiment and play with this a little bit. Get familiar with the glyphs because they're often very helpful in design if you're trying to achieve a certain look or do something that will save you some time. Okay, and all you need to do is if you find a glyph you like, you just double click it and it will appear in your recently used glyph section here at the top. And then when you click into any text box and select your glyph, double click it, it will appear in your text box. All right, so let's close out on that one and I'll go ahead and come back to the slide. So that's what a glyph is. This is when your type knowledge will really show or not. Use appropriate marks, okay? Use glyphs when available. Practice sensitive typography. And then make sure that language-specific characters and accents are used. So if you're doing something that's, say, in a different language like Spanish, you'll want to pull out your glyphs and you'll want to start using those characters that will reflect that language. So you just want to be sure that you're familiar with what your font family has to help you further your design. Okay, let's talk about using effects responsibly. There are 3 deadly weapons of design that I want to talk about, and this is, for some reason, students tend to gravitate towards these, but I promise you, you will be better off without them. Don't stroke your fonts. Don't add a stroke to your filled font. In fact, this looks very amateurish. It's kind of looked down upon in the industry. Only professionals who have done this or who are seasoned can do it appropriately if you do see it, but most often than not, you don't see a lot of font that has a stroke on it, especially when you're laying out an article or something like that with large bodies of text. Stroke fonts may be perhaps used for a headline size type font, but very rarely is it ever used correctly. So I want to also address the drop shadows. Does anyone know what a drop shadow is? Okay, so a drop shadow is kind of a neat effect if it's used correctly. So I'll pull up InDesign yet again and I'll show you what a drop shadow is. So I'll grab my type box and I will, actually, I'm not going to do type because it does not work effectively on type. I'll grab a shape. So I'll have my triangle here, and say I want to give it a drop shadow. I would go to Object, Effect, Drop Shadow. And you're given a box here. And as you can see immediately with my preview box checked, you can see the shadowing behind it. Now, some shadowing can be more extreme than others. I do have the option to adjust the opacity of the drop shadow so it's lessened. It's not quite as dark and as prominent. So I can lessen the heaviness of the drop shadow so it's more subtle. I can also adjust how much it's seen on the x-axis and how much it's seen on the y-axis. So I can adjust the x and y offset is what it's called. The distance or the position, I can rotate the angle. So if I want the drop shadow to appear at the top or the left or the right or even the bottom, I can adjust where my drop shadow appears. And then the size of it, size you can adjust to be how large or how small. So that's a drop shadow. Now, a drop shadow is, when it's used effectively, can really give it some depth to an image. And often drop shadows are used in some logo design as well as graphic and layout design. But it's never used on large bodies of type. Okay, so that's a don't here. What not to do. You definitely don't want to apply a drop shadow to your large bodies of text. There's no real good reason why you would need to do that. Drop shadows work effectively when they're done on large scale items like a large graphic or shape or maybe a letter, but hardly ever do you do it in actual formatting with paragraph text. So that's just something to be aware of. So just avoid the temptation altogether. And then Donovan's asking, could I use the drop shadow on the face assignment? See, I would even say no on that because this is what not to do, the drop shadows. It will actually muddle your design quite a bit, Donovan. So I would recommend avoiding the drop shadows altogether on your design. It looks so good as it is. So I mean, you can play around with it, and if you feel like it adds something to your design, then go for it. But I'm actually discouraging the use of stroke fonts, the use of drop shadows, and the use of gradients, okay? Again, these are the 3 deadly weapons of design because they're tempting. You think a little bit more might add to the design, but actually less is more. So without a drop shadow, things are a lot cleaner, crisper, and then without gradients, multiple colors and multiple shades all in one, it can get really muddled very easily and very hard to read. So again, we want to stay away from these as much as possible until we're nice and seasoned and we understand the purpose and when to appropriately include it. So using effects responsibly. So with the drop shadows, they are used in graphic design. I'm not saying they're not, but you need to have a purpose for the shadow. Is it needed? So in your case, Donovan, I think that you accomplished your mission. You were able to create an outline. You were able to create the elements of your daughter's face appropriately with the type alone. You didn't need drop shadows. You didn't need any effects to create it. And so I would say that would probably be a question. Is it needed? I don't think so. So as a designer, you probably want to be able to answer that question. You could answer it better because it is your design, but I would say just make sure it's needed, or are you just trying to add a little bit more to it? If anything, if you wanted to add something to it, add more type to it, okay? Add more detail to the face or to the portrait, but not effects. And then take time to get it right. This is something that takes a lot of practice. So practice using drop shadow just to be familiar with it, but then you'll start kind of developing an eye for it and when to use it responsibly. Gradients are the same thing. It just takes time to get it right, but please avoid using more than 3 colors and then keep the colors close on the color wheel, meaning don't have red, green, and blue. Maybe 2 shades of blue, a lighter blue and a darker blue will add some depth to it, but if you start using multiple colors, you just get the rainbow, and it doesn't really add to a design when you do that. In fact, some of the best designs only use 1 or 2 colors as it is. You don't have to add a whole lot. And last week we talked about that, only using 2 or 3 colors in your design. Stroked fonts. So again, you have to have a purpose, but in my 12 years of design, I've never really needed to add a stroke to my fonts. It's never been something that you really use. A lot like the Papyrus font, it's kind of overused, so it's also looked down upon. So it almost looks like you're just an amateur if you start using stroke fonts. So try to avoid that if you can. We want to look professional. We want to be able to get out of bad habits before they start. Text effects and distortions. Typing on a path. Donovan's probably could tell us a whole bunch on how to type on a path, because that's how he did his portrait, which looks great, by the way. Typing on a path is where you draw a line or you draw a shape, and you can type around that character. You can text warp, which will distort your text a little bit. Envelope, distort, vertical type. These are all different kinds of effects and distortions. We're not going to get too heavily in these, but please be aware that they are used. You just have to use them appropriate, and only used with skill and wisdom. So you definitely want to make sure you're using them correctly. But in this case, we won't have a whole lot of time to get into that. I will show you designer responsibility. What can happen if you don't pay attention to detail? Let's look at what happens when designers fail to look at the details. Can anyone see what is wrong with this picture? If you see it, call it out. Yep, misspelling. Someone didn't run spell check on their or edit their design. This could be a fatal mistake as a designer and as a company. So you really want to make sure that you spell check your work. What about this one? Packed with tasteless sugar. It all kind of runs together, right? There's no real punctuation. Again, it was the same thing as let's eat grandma. Without proper punctuation, you don't get a complete sentence that makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, no comma and no period and no, this is the end of the sentence, this is where it breaks. So again, make sure that you pay attention to that. What about this one? Yeah, without the space, it kind of leaves you questioning what the store is for. But yeah, it definitely needs some space between kids and exchange. Without that, it kind of runs all into each other and it doesn't make sense. So please be aware of your spacing. This is why letting and tracking is so important. This is why we emphasize spacing in general when it comes to typography and layout and design. And then here's another one. So look at the consistency as far as the pictures, the placement of pictures. They don't line up. The headlines don't line up correctly on the left side. Even the actual layout of the title of the movie is all off. And then even on the right side, the DVD video logo is all off. So someone wasn't using a template here. They were kind of eyeballing it, which is unfortunate. Yeah, the boldness in Harry Potter too. So even the fonts aren't consistent. The font sizes of the logo is not consistent. So exactly. I didn't even notice that, Donovan. That's a good point. It's a more or less obvious one. What about this one? Yeah. Is there a first floor or a second floor? Yeah, I think someone was copying and pasting here and forgot to adjust this. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but as a designer, this can look really bad on you, or even as a company, this can look really bad. Only if you're missing teeth, exactly. All right, and then let's look with the logic here. So if this was supposed to be an acronym for something, they certainly didn't make a whole lot of sense. The end department, I mean, it just doesn't, I don't know how to read this sign very well. So again, you want to make sure that everything you do on a page makes sense and that you don't leave the viewer going, huh? What is that? Or why did they do that? So again, you want it to make sense right away. Yeah, you're kind of lost. What about this one? Magazine cover. The magazine is called Where, Orange County Where, but the placement of the picture, yeah, the placing of the head kind of allows the reader to kind of interpret that a little bit differently, right? So we want to make sure that everything is placed correctly and that you kind of take a step back and make sure that nothing's covering something up. You just look at your design a little bit closer. Yeah, the placing of the head. So you really want to make sure you're doing your job as a designer. Here's another design from a designer who thought this would work. Is this a good idea gone wrong, you think? I think they saw it going a little bit differently in their head when they were laying this one out. So in this case, they were trying to use the piece of grapefruit, the slice of grapefruit, as the G, but because it doesn't form a G and because it's a little bit disconnected because it's a picture and then you've got the text, it almost doesn't translate very well. So this had a different meaning to what the article is really about. So yeah, grapefruit. I think they were trying to make the piece of fruit a G as part of the word. Yeah, it didn't go over well. So it didn't. Yeah, that one didn't translate. Okay, let's talk about our typefaces, our type illustrations. I have a video to show you, but first I want to show you some examples of some students have gone before you. There's a few different kinds of portraits you can do, like you saw with Donovan. He actually used text and words and a whole line of letters to create the outline, or you can use characters to create the portrait. So this, you'll see lots of different examples of how to attack this assignment. All right, here's another. Of course, it's not a portrait, but this definitely is art. And look how they have very effectively designed by using font size, rotating characters, and even placement of characters, repeating characters. You're able to get this really incredible town center building here, Old Stone Church. That's really cool how they definitely have been using Type on a Path tool for some of these. So that's another example. Here's one that you could, if you really wanted to get complicated, it's the same concept as what Donovan did with putting a picture on a layer and then adding a layer on top of it and then kind of tracing it with characters and just kind of copying and pasting, kind of duplicating a lot of stuff. And these take quite a while. There's a lot of ways you can do it in Photoshop to kind of get this effect here on the left. But overall, this is the same concept. You just type a word or phrase or just keep placing words around until you can get that effect that you're looking for. All right, and then I did have some examples I wanted to show you. See if I can pull them up. Let me see if I got them. All right, let me show a video, and while you're watching the video, I'll see if I can pull them up. So let's go here, and this is how to do type illustrations, or basically how to approach the assignment.
Well, we get to have a little fun here. We're going to talk in this video about type illustrations. And while type illustration is not technically a graphic design use of typography, still it's an excellent exercise in looking at the different characters and how their structure can be utilized to create visual imagery. So I'm going to show you a couple examples of different type illustrations, and you can decide which of these appeal to you because you're going to be doing an assignment with type illustration. So this first one is a very simple black and white depiction of a hippopotamus, and as it doesn't use exactly the letters in the word hippopotamus, but it does utilize several of them, and you can recognize some of them. And the letters have not really been distorted, but they have been put together and structured in such a way that they suggest the shape of a stylized animal. And the typeface is a serif typeface, and the serifs make wonderful feet for the animal to stand on. You see the H in the middle, giving structure to the body, and the rounded forms suggesting the bulk of the animal's torso. What looks like a lowercase j creates a nice smile on the animal's face, and we see the dots that could be part of a lowercase I to create the eye and the nostril. So in this particular style, the letter forms themselves with their different characteristics help to construct this simple, whimsical, and pleasing illustration. This next one here is a different approach, and this is something that I created by starting with a silhouette of a penguin. And then I typed the word penguin in Illustrator and made each letter separate and created outlines so that I could distort and pull the letters into the shape I needed to describe the shape of the animal. Now, unlike the hippopotamus, I wanted the word penguin to be clearly read and, really clear what it was. So I had to make sure the placement of the letters was easily read and clearly defined. And you can see where I put the U inside the G to create and fill the space there, but yet still remain readable. So it was an exercise in distortion and pulling the letter forms. It's still a bit rough, but you get the idea of where I was going with this. So this is something that you can very easily do in Illustrator by creating outlines with your type and then using the direct selection tool to pull the vector points into the shapes that you need. This next one looks to me like it might have been hand-drawn, although it might have been digital, but it could very well have been hand-drawn. And this, again, uses the shape of the animal filled with letter forms to describe it, but instead of the letters creating the shape such as the penguin was, this is instead filled with letter forms. And here, the words and letters and phrases used talk about what the animal is. It's a serpent, it's a snake, so we see references to serpents and also to Garden of Eden, Adam, serpent, forbidden, that sort of thing. So this is getting a little bit more into a conceptual illustration and using type to communicate a verbal or a written message in addition to the visual message, okay? This last one here that I'm going to show on this Photoshop file, I really like this because this, I think, goes a step farther than some type illustrations do. I found this with a Google search for type illustrations, and you see a lot of this kind of style with type illustrations, but this one I think does a very good job because it tells a story as well as being technically quite well done. The letter forms describe the shape of the hands and the arms, and they do it very nicely with spacing and density to describe the shadows and the highlights. But you can see that there's also a good use of color here. And if you look closely, the phrases that are used help to tell the story. Now, the red arm and hand is the one that is in need of assistance, is feeling alone, is feeling helpless. And the stronger looking black arm and hand that is coming down and holding the other hand has text that is reassuring and strong. So it does a good job of using type in a very nicely done technical way to describe the shapes, but also to tell a story in using color and the actual text. So I think that's a very strong use of type. Now, how would you create that? There are tutorials online that will show you how to create lots of different type effects, but this one, I haven't found a tutorial per se on how to do this, but you could probably create it line by line. It would take a while, but you certainly can do it. I would say Illustrator would be the one to use for this. I'm going to finish up here with showing you a website that I found, again, with that Google search for type illustrations. And this is a site called isawthatsomewhere.com. Various art samples here to look at. And this is a series of illustrations by an illustrator named Sarah King. And her style looks hand-drawn, although it certainly could be digital. It's a little hard to tell. And her style is to take areas and literally fill them with type while remaining very readable and also using color and subtle texture to a really strong degree. I like how legible this is, even though it's distorted and filled with text. And again, the color really helps to make this subtle and very intriguing and textural. The second one is hard to see because the letters are so small, but if you had a large poster of this, it would be really fun to read. It looks like sea creatures under the sea, and I'm sure there's a lot going on in there. Some of these are simpler than others. This one is pretty cool. It's a silhouette of the map of San Francisco, and the Museum of Modern Art is the title. So I am assuming that the names that she's got in here are the artists who are in the museum. And I really like the use of color on this one as well. Here is a picture of Obama. A lot of portraits are done with text, and this is extremely well done because the thickness of the letters show the dark hair and the back of the head and under the chin where the shadows would be. So it's a very nice use of text spacing and text weight to describe the planes of the face and the highlights and shadows. Extremely strong. Here is a simpler one with some really good flow, obviously. A nice image of a train with some dense text on there. And this last one is very strong. I can't show you the whole thing on the screen because it's so large, but I'll pan down slowly for you. It is a portrait, sort of a psychedelic science fiction style fantasy portrait. And what works for me with this one is the balance of blacks and whites here. There is some visual imagery. It's not entirely text, but what works nicely is the fact that she's got white text on black background and black background with white text, black and white reversal. So she's got a nice balance of blacks and whites here. And I think that's what makes this so rich and interesting. If it had all been black text on a white background, I don't think it would be as strong. So this bears some good looking, and something like this is extremely detailed, and we certainly don't expect you to whip off something like this in a couple of days for an assignment, but you can be inspired by what other people are doing to create your text illustrations. And it's perfectly fine to go back to the more simple approach, such as we see here. But when you do, that's perfectly fine, as I say, but you can really celebrate the letter forms by treating them as building blocks for your visual illustrations. So enjoy, have fun, and I hope you can come up with some arresting and creative uses of type for illustrative use. Thanks.
All right, so what did you guys think? Pretty cool, huh? Lots of creativity out there. Hopefully you guys enjoy this assignment. This is probably one of my favorite to demo. I'll go ahead and pull up, and let's see, we're supposed to be an illustrator, so let me get that pulled up real quick. I'll get a new document started. So if you guys want to follow along with me, go ahead and open up your Illustrator. Mine takes just a minute to load, so bear with me. And on this note, we'll go ahead and jump into our demo for the type illustration. I also want to show you, while this is loading, a few more examples of some student submissions that have been turned in over the course of a few mods, so that you guys can get a feel for what other students are turning in and kind of gauge your work. I always liked seeing what others were doing to kind of help inspire me in my designs. So when I was in school, so I will go ahead and get mine. Yeah, I love ideas. So we're gonna do a new share here. Let's see if I can pull up my PDF that I wanted to share with you. All right, one second. I have so many windows open. Here we are. Okay. And we'll do a screen share. Here we go. All right, so I'll zoom out so that you can get a better idea. This is what some students have turned in. There's 16 examples here. And some of these are a little bit more ornate. Some are a little bit more simple. The demo that I'll be doing is a lot more simpler than this. But again, I want you to have some fun with it. Experiment with the characters. And like she said in the video, use the letters and the characters as building blocks for your illustration. This is really you getting familiar with the font. Oops. Let's go to number 2. Okay, so as you can see, this is a more simpler font than the previous one, but the use of characters is very appropriate. The repetition of using the J's has created this part in the hair that adds some balance and symmetry to this layout, which I really like. This one's great. I love this one. Bodoni is or botany. Oh, I don't even know how to say it. This font that's been used has a lot of curvature to the characters, and so by using the curvy characters like the 8s and the 3s, this has really created the curly hair that they're trying to go for, and I really like that one. Another Futura font. So this one, a little bit more detailed. Bodini. Okay, thank you, Donovan. So Bodini, I think it's how it's pronounced. I know I should know. I never know I only know the ones I usually work with, and that's one font I don't use a whole lot. Thank you. So here's another Futura font illustration. Here's Dido, and this one is great. If you can look closely, it almost looks like a pipe, and then by the use of the G, it looks like an eye or maybe a glass, but it continues into the cheek here. It's just really well done. Here's Universe. Look at this one for a second. Kind of step back. It took me a while to kind of see, or just a second to see what this really was, but by use of the strokes on the font, they were able to create some highlights in the hair, which I really think is cool. And then this person drinking coffee, love the characters. This abstract portrait really works. The S's for the steam on the cup is a nice touch. Helvetica, they used the characters and kind of kept things a little bit more spread apart, whereas the previous one had characters that were really close together. But you can see how you can get different effects by just even the spacing with placement alone. And this one as well, Futura, uses some pretty cool S's to get that waves in the hair. And some of these you have to look a little hard to see what it is, and some are better than others, but don't just put eyes and a mouth and a nose. I mean, I want you to play around with the characters and kind of experiment. This person did a great job with the curly hair and the use of the glasses. Yeah, you kind of have to step back with that one. Absolutely. Here's Baskerville, again, another great portrait. This one's on the simpler side, but if you look closely, I love the button nose and the face. Almost looks like an emoji. It's almost that simple, but and I think you could do more with it, but I thought this was really good. Look, with this assignment, you're going to just get credit for trying. So it's up to you how much effort you want to put into it. I would love to see something creative and see you try something that might challenge yourself a little bit more. But in the end, it's how good of a designer do you want to be? Do you want to push yourself, or do you want to do, whatever's quick and easy? And that's fine, whatever works for you. But I just really encourage you to have fun with this assignment and try to experiment a little bit. This one was really cool. They did the reverse text, and that created some intrigue there. Another student did the same thing. Yes, Donovan, that's this week's assignment. That's what you did. You did your assignment already. So yours is done. All right, and that was the end. So as you can see, lots of different options, different designs, different interpretations, really, of what this assignment is. So hopefully that gives you something to look, to use toward your design. So for mine, we're going to be working in Illustrator. I'm going to zoom in here. And there is this really cool website, or actually company, that took some Star Wars characters, some familiar Star Wars characters, and I really made some art out of it. And so I'm going to show you one in particular that we're going to base our tutorial over or off of. So here is this one, and you might have seen this one online kind of circulating. It's the website's at h-57h57.com, and they have a whole slew of Star Wars posters that they'd created out of just using simple typography, which I think is just really clever and really neat. Yeah, so this is Yoda, and let me see if I could pull another one that I might have grabbed to show you. Let's see. I don't know if I grabbed the other ones. I could pull up the website so you guys can see lots of different. Here, I'll pull up the website because you get a kick out of this. I think you'd enjoy seeing it. So we'll pull up this website here. This is urbangiants.co.uk, and they're featuring an article that was posted on the H57 website. But as you can see, here are some really cool characters. Everything is designed around the theme, may the force of typography be with you. And so I thought, how appropriate for our assignment this week. I like the puns too, and you'll never think of Star Wars the same way again. So even with the new movie coming out, you'll probably be thinking, wow, how could I draw that character with just using typographic characters, huh? So this is the Star Wars typographic poster, the Stormtrooper. Very, very good job. Now, in this case, they did use different fonts to get the characters. So they're using Helvetica, Times New Roman, Bodini, and I think Helvetica New. They're using quite a few different font families. In your assignment, though, you're supposed to only use your font, so only one font. So you'd have to pull from the other characters. So you might not get the exact same effect, but you could definitely try to mimic it. And this is the Darth Vader. So I thought that was pretty clever. Kind of similar to what they did with the Stormtrooper. They just kind of squared out the cheeks a little bit. Or I guess the helmet. And then this is the one we're going to do today, the Yoda. So I'm going to show you how to capture Yoda by using some characters. Yeah, and the eyes are great. I think just everything works. So typography really plays a major role in our specialist area of branding and brand identity design. So it's nice to see something creative using type in a more lighthearted way, don't you think? Let's see. So we'll go back to InDesign. Now, if you do find something online that you want to copy, that's great. If you want to do your own design like Donovan did, you can do that too. But Donovan also had a picture for his background. And so we're going to pretend this is our picture for our background. So here's a few things you're going to need in your arsenal. You need to go to Windows, drop-down menu, and you're going to need to select Layers. Make sure Layers is selected. When your Layers box is open, you're going to want to go to your layer link right here, and you want to lock it because you don't want to see it, okay? Or you don't want to be able to move it. This is just for visual purposes, so you can gauge where you're going to be placing characters. Okay, so first things first, because I'm seeing this as more of a sans serif font, I'm going to grab, let's do Helvetica. I'll grab a type tool. Sorry, I can hear my voice fading now, so good thing we don't have much class left. All right, so I'll start with the brackets. And I'll kind of make it a lot larger so I can see what I'm working with. What's nice too is once you have typed out your character, you go to Type, Create Outlines, and by holding down your Alt Option button as you click and drag, this will allow you to expand it and constrain the proportions, okay, without distorting or squishing. But in these cases, this design might take a little bit of distorting and squishing. So I'm going to rotate the character by hovering over the corner anchor point. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. I want to roughly get the same size. Again, I'm not going to be able to get the exact look because I'm using a different font than this artist did. But once I've got that ear, I'm going to copy it and paste it and rotate it so it fits the other side. And with this kind of portrait, angle is key. So you want to make sure you get the right angle. There you go. That's good enough. And then I'm going to grab the parentheses. He's using parentheses to create the head, the dome of Yoda's head. So I'll get the open parentheses. I'm doing one at a time so that I can make sure I place it correctly. Again, once you've typed in your character, go to Type, Create Outlines, And again, hold down Alt Option, and this will allow you to expand it to your liking. So I'm going to squish this, and in this case, this is the one exception to the rule of stretching is you're able to use your characters to form the look you're trying to achieve here. And again, this is kind of a rough sketch. You can use your left and left, right, up and down arrow keys. Once I've got it placed, I'm going to copy and paste. Copy and paste will be your best friend in this assignment to save you time of having to redraw or reformat your character. And again, I want to make sure I get the angle right on the head. And then it looks to me that they're using a bunch of open and closed parentheses for this design. So again, I'll copy it a second time. They are using different font families, but since we're not able to do that for this assignment, I'm just going to stick with the same open and closed chin. Hopefully get the angle I'm going for. And again, I'll paste another character, only this time it's going to be rotated the other way and shrunk down quite small. And just by doing this alone, I think you'll capture the look really easily. And feel free to follow along with me as if you're able to watch me and do the InDesign. I'm just kind of grabbing this. I found this on Google Images. I just did May the Force of Typography be with you, or you can Star Wars typography images. All right, and then I'm using these parentheses quite a bit, these open and closed ones. But I'm going to be angling them for the eyebrows. And in this case, I'm going to squish them in, kind of get a good arch on them to give me that dramatic effect. I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So again, I'm using this layer, this image that I'm trying to copy as kind of my template as far as to where to place items or elements on a page. I'll do this one. I copied and pasted after I formatted it. And now this one we'll take as just a simple rotation. I'll use my up and down keys to kind of place my eyebrow. And then this one for the eye. So it's just really a bunch of parentheses, it looks like. You might need to play around a little bit with this one, with rotation and whatnot. But once you get the general idea down. And I'm trying to focus a little bit more on the width, the contrasting the width, so not everything is very thick, because I really want it to kind of look like this is an eyebrow and this is the eyelid. All right, so I've got the eye placed, and now it looks like I need eyes. We'll use a 0 or maybe an O. And I'm not going to get that cool serif font look, but I can bold my O. So I'm going to go to bold and type, create outlines. And I'm going to stretch it a little bit, kind of place it there. I'm going to try to get it so it's roughly the same height, and then I'll copy it over. Because everything's usually a mirror image of itself anyways when you're doing a portrait. And then the last thing I'm going to need is a D, capital D. And I want a light on this one to capture the nose. And I'm going to go to type, create outlines. And I can take it over here and rotate it. So are there any questions as I'm doing this? How I got an effect? Any questions at all? Okay, so far Yoda's coming along, and then I'll just do a line tool, or you can do an eye In fact, I'll do an I because we're supposed to do typography, not other things. So there's my I. And I'm going to do a semi-bold on that one. Type, create outlines. Oops. And I'll rotate it. All right, so this was a quick and dirty way to do the actual illustration. But now I can go to my layer, and what I want to do is select, I forgot to set my second layer, so now I'm going to click on all my type characters. Don't do what I did. Make sure you add a second layer. So I've got my layer, and then I'm going to add a new layer, which is going to be my type, and I'll paste it. Okay, and then I'm going to hide my other layer so that all you see is what I've designed. So with that character, with it all highlighted, I can enlarge it. And then at the bottom, you're definitely going to want to tell me what font you use. So in this case, I used Myriad Pro. And this is Yoda. And kind of format it that way. All right. So there you go. There's my Yoda portrait. So are there any questions about how to achieve this look, how to do this assignment? It should be pretty straightforward. You're simply using characters. And once you hide your layer, you can, tighten up things or change it up a little bit. All right, no questions? Okay, if there's no questions, we're going to take the last 15 minutes or so, and we're going to jump into the next portion of our week assessment. And that is where we're going to be formatting text. So we're going to switch gears here, and now we're going to close out of Illustrator, and we're going to jump into InDesign. And I'm going to have to pull InDesign up real quick. There we go. Okay, so can you all see my InDesign screen? I'm going to close out of Illustrator here. Okay, so when it comes to formatting a page, you really want to focus on the structure and the formatting of the paragraphs, okay? Now we're asked to include a paragraph style and a character style, and we were explained on how to do that, but I'll do a quick demo for you guys. And I need to open a document, so give me just a second as I get my bearings straight here. So many windows open, it's hard to navigate, and everything's kind of stalling on me. Whoops. Okay. All right, so for this one, it just would be a matter of how do you format it? Well, you could do a Google search of magazine article, typography articles. There's a whole slew of them out there, but just something simple, something clean, and something that features your text, basically, is what I'm after. All right. I was going to pull up a Google so I could show you how to do it, but I wanted to show you one version that I saw or one example that I saw that actually was kind of along the lines of what I was trying to achieve for this assignment. Now, you don't have to do it quite as complex, but you will need to have some kind of visual interest. So let me see if I can get the design up. 1 second. It's taking a minute to load. I don't think it's going to let me grab it, so I'll share with you the screen. Here it is. Okay, so here's my screen. This is a really clean layout, and you do have a paper. In this case, we're not doing 2 pages, you're just doing 1. And this is a magazine layout, but the reason why I'm using this as an example is because magazine layouts tend to use a lot of white space. They're clean, they're easy to read, and they're very eye-catching. So with the use of color and the use of formatting paragraphs and the sub-headline here and then the byline, they've added a lot of elements that are different, but they all feel unified, and they all read very nicely. So we're going to be kind of copying this kind of layout over here. And the first thing you're going to want to do, so I'll delete this and kind of work backwards for just a minute. Yeah, we're talking about assessment 3. So we're just about to start. We're now in InDesign, and we're going to go, you create a new document. Once you have your new document open, I'm just doing a standard 8.5 by 11 page, and your article should only be about 1 page. It shouldn't be more than that. So you just kind of focus on 1-page design for this assignment. And then you're going to go to File, Place. And this is how you place your article that you wrote. Yes, 8.5 by 11, Donovan. You find the document that you wrote, just your Word document, and you hit Open. And if my computer wants to work, there we go. So you go to File, Place, find the Word document you want to use, and then hit Open. It will take a minute to process all the characters. And keep in mind, the formatting that you have in your Word document will translate into your InDesign. So that can kind of be handy, but at the same time, in my case, not so handy, because I grabbed this off the internet. So it has still some of the fonts that it can't find, some formatting that wasn't consistent. So this is not very good for me. In the case that you might have formatted it in Word, it should carry over just fine. So this is my article that I placed. Now, if you look down here at the bottom, there's this red plus sign and this anchor point down here. That means that there's more text that can't be seen, that needs to be visible. So if you click the plus sign, it will actually allow you to draw another text box, and it will continue that same text, like so. By clicking both text boxes, you're able to kind of stretch the text boxes across until there's no longer any more red plus sign. When that disappears, it means you've used all of your text. Okay. So I'm just going to go through here, see if I can. There we go. All right. So now we've got our text placed, but now I need to work on formatting it. Okay. Well, I'm going to select. It's very important to make sure that your text boxes are the same size. How do you do that? Well, you click on your text box, and it will show you at the top of the screen your width and your height. So let me click on the desktop real quick so you can see everything that I'm doing. There we go. You can see my messy desktop. There we go. And we're going to be mimicking this layout right here, the spike layout, as far as how to lay out a clean 1-page formatted article. And so with my text boxes, I'm going to go up here, this width and height I need to adjust. So I'm going to do 22, just to stay consistent, 22 wide, and then it can stay the same height, 52, I'll just do 52 high. And then I'll want to go over to my second box and type in those same values, 22 wide, 52 high, okay? So now they're the same width and height, and I'm going to make sure I use my margin lines and bring them in so they line up perfectly. I'm going to kind of bring this down a little bit to make sure I have room for my headline. My headline is "Don't apply character styles to an entire paragraph." That's my headline. So I'll draw a separate text box for that. Now here's where character styles can come in. Character styles are meant if you wanted to do a drop cap on a paragraph, or if you wanted to indent a paragraph. I believe character styles will let you do that. It allows you to add emphasis. If you needed emphasis to add, like, let's see, I wanted to adjust my horizontal or my vertical scale, or maybe I can make this one italic, kind of italicize this one, or give it a different font family. But the differences we learned with font, character styles, and paragraph styles is that paragraph styles are very limited, and you're only able to maybe do a certain character within a body of text, whereas paragraph styles, you can format the entire thing. It has the character styles and the paragraph style options. So you definitely want to be able to use both, but in this case, we definitely want to make sure we we have more paragraph styles that we're using. Okay, so first thing we need to do is create our character style. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a new one. You double click on it to bring up the box. I'll go to basic character formats. This allows me to choose my font family. I'm going to use Helvetica because that's, whoops, that's the font that I'm going to be using today. You can choose condensed, which I will do. The size, I'm going to do 50. Oops, I keep closing out, sorry. I need to give it a name. This is going to be headline so that I know what it's going to be. And then I need to position it, let's see, go to character color will be, I'll give it a blue, a nice blue. And then you can see if you want to add any other features. In this case, that's all I need, okay? So hit OK. I'm going to highlight my text and click headline. So now it's applied that change to my text. So now I can go in and I want to highlight it and make it all caps. And I may need to shrink down the font size just a little bit, but I definitely want to shorten this and give it some breaks. I'm going to adjust the leading so it's tight. And then I'm going to resize this a little bit so it's not too large. I'm going to make sure that my margin line or my text box lines up with my purple margin lines, that everything is properly centered. And then here's where some formatting comes in. You can make it interesting. In this case, I'm going to grab 2 lines here. 1, 2. And I'm going to adjust the width and stroke to 1/4. And you can do that right here. Your stroke can be adjusted. So you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to grab this intro text and I'm going to draw a text box within it, smack dab in the middle. And then I'm not going to italicize this, but I want this to be Helvetica. So what I'm going to do is go into my paragraph styles. I'm going to click on, I can use this pre-existing one, normal, and I'll name this subhead. So I'll remember it's my subheading. And then this is where I'll go and adjust my font size. So I want to do Helvetica new. I want it to be, let's try a light extended. Whoops. And then I'll do a 12-point font, and that should be good. Okay, so hit OK. And in this case, I want to double click this and click subhead. All right, excuse me. So it's already being formatted. That red plus sign means I have more text, so I need to be mindful of that. I'm actually going to center this in between. Kind of play around with it. And then I'll go back into my subhead, and this one I want to make gray. I forgot to change the color. So you can go to character color, and I'm going to adjust the tint just slightly so that it gives me some gray. And this will break up the heavy black text on my page. Oops. Hang on. There we go. I'll have to do it up here. Go to character. And please be aware that if I just made the mistake, but if you make a change in one of yours and it's been applied to another portion of your page, it will automatically make that change if you go in and make any changes to your style. So in this case, I'll hit OK. I want to do this. Okay. And then this is where I can format everything. I want my little headers. I'll go to paragraph style. I'll add new. this one are going to be my headers. And this one I'm going to do Helvetica New. I'll do this one bold, and I'll do about 18 point. I'll hit OK. So now I can click through and make sure my headers are being used. And then I want to format my body text like this. So I'll click on body text. Just like that. And I'm using about a 12-point font. But in this case, I think what I'm going to do is highlight everything. And I'm going to go in and adjust it with the basic paragraph text. I'm going to go in and do a much smaller text so all the text can fit. I'm going to try picking Helvetica. And I'm going to make sure that my indents and spacing are all even. Now, if I wanted to do the first line indent of a paragraph, I can, select this, or I can do, let's see, alignment. I can mess with my alignment, but when you're formatting your text, it should be left aligned, okay? And then you'll just do all your formatting in here. So then here is your basic layout. You might want to include a byline. It's by you, so you would say by Mrs. Woodland. And the byline is very small, so maybe 12 points. And in this case, I'd want it to stand out, so I'll probably put it right here. I'm going to make this much smaller. For contrast. And then this is where you'll want a character style. If you go into character style and I'll create a new one. Oops. This one's going to be my drop cap. I'll go into basic character formats. I'll create my font that I want to use. And then I'm going to go into, see if it'll let me do it in here. If you want to give it a color, I could give it blue. Let's see, I might have to do this in paragraph, because as you can see, character style is very limited. So I'll cancel that. I'll go into paragraph and we'll do a new one. This will be my drop cap. And we'll do one line, or we'll do 3 lines. And that should be good. So now I've got my drop cap, I've got my byline, my subhead, and my header. It's all formatted correctly. You'll need to go and adjust your subheads, but we're about out of time now, so I won't be able to, do it all. But you need to make sure your subheads are consistent, consistently formatted. Are there any questions as we're going through this? You need to know anything? Feel comfortable? The secret to doing this and to doing it successfully is to probably make sure that you are creating the paragraph style before you apply it to a paragraph, because then once you make a change, it will adjust that change and you'll kind of get confused. So I suggest making the character style, presetting it, and then applying it to your text. So just make sure things are formatted correctly. Everything's kind of the same color, same size. Definitely want to make sure everything is uniform. All the headers are the same size. All right. Well, we're out of time today, so we'll go ahead and end here, but I hope this helps a little bit to kind of see what you're supposed to be turning in. Hopefully you do something clean and lay out your article. You can do a 2-column grid, or you could do a 3-column grid. But either way, you'll need to make sure that your columns are the same size, same width, same height. So if you wanted to do a 3-column grid, you could do it this way as well. I'm going to be looking for certain things like our elements lining up with your purple margins. You don't want your text boxes to hang over it. You want to have them in. You want your spacing to be even between each text box. want your spacing to be even, and you don't want any, you need to watch your rags and make sure that you don't have any space your lines into the same point if you can get them to. All right. Let's see. I think that concludes today's lecture. So I'll wish you guys good luck. If you need any help, come on Thursday and I can help you with your assignment. We can work on the assessment and the assignment 3. If you need any more immediate assistance before or after that, go ahead and visit the Student Success Center. They're there to help, and they can help on any of your assignments in current or past weeks. So remember, check your grades also, because as we're moving into week 4 next week, I can't believe we're already going to tackling the final. We're going to need to make sure that grades are finalized. So if anything isn't entered correctly, or you're still missing a grade for something, or something wasn't graded, please bring it to my attention. No doubt things fall through the cracks. So I want to make sure that you're staying on top of it, because after week 4, I'm not able to make any adjustments. So I want to make sure that everything is good to go. So, all right. Are there any questions before we leave? All right, Donovan, did you have a question? Did you need to share something? Donovan, did you want to share your assignment and get some help on the formatting? Sure, no problem. You can go ahead and share. I'll close out my screen and you can go ahead and share yours. Okay. All right, so what's your question?
Do I happen to have this right here, or because like I said, I stepped out and I missed exactly how to do this. So what I was doing was I was just going off of basically what you were, a little bit of what I caught. This is from the letter that what we wrote last week. But what else do we have to do to it?
Right, so you'll want to rewatch the design demo that I just did. So you'll need to format your text boxes. You'll need to have it in a 2 or 3 paragraph or 2 or 3 column grid. And then I stepped you through how to set up the character and paragraph styles. We went over that in quite a bit in depth. So what I'll say, the video should be up later tonight or early tomorrow morning for sure. And I'll have you watch it. If you have any questions, bring it on Thursday and we can work together on fine-tuning it.
Okay, so what I have here right now, just get rid of it and rewatch the video and do it from there?
Not get rid of it, but I definitely recommend watching the demo at least so that you can see, because I stepped you through exactly how to do it. It'd probably take another half hour to go over everything again. So I would just say watch the video. If you still have questions, come bring it on Thursday and we can work together on it, or you can take it to the Student Success Center. But you're just basically laying it out like a magazine article is the idea. So and not all magazine articles are the same. So if you want to do something different than what I designed, then you can just go online, kind of Google images and magazine article and kind of look for something. Basically, you need to have a headline, you need to have your paragraph boxes, but all your boxes need to be the same width and height, and they need to flow, and then you need to have like a subheader, but you also need character styles and paragraph styles. So it's going to take a while to work on. So I recommend watching the demo, and then if you have questions still, you can either email me or come on Thursday and we can work together on it.
All right.
Sounds good? Yep. Hey, thanks for coming. We'll see you.
No problem.
It should be up tonight. It usually takes me about 2 hours to upload it. It's quite large. So if you fill up, go for it. Otherwise, it'll be up first thing in the morning.
All right.
Thanks, Donovan. Thanks for coming.
No problem.
Bye-bye.